we're going to talk about something that might seem, well, pretty surprising at first. The connection between being autistic and being transgender. It's this crossroads that researchers are just now starting to really explore. And what they're uncovering is this incredibly unique, complex human experience. Let's dive in.
So, what is the connection here? I mean, really? One identity is about how your brain is wired, right? Your neurology. The other is about your gender. On the surface, they seem like they're from totally different worlds. But when you look closer, you find this really significant overlap that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about both.
And here's the thing you have to understand. This isn't just a numbers game. It's not just a statistic. Researchers are finding this shared, lived experience. It's about a unique way of moving through a world that so often pressures people to hide who they really are.
So what was the first clue that tipped researchers off to this whole connection? Well, it started with the numbers. And believe me, they tell a surprisingly powerful story.
Okay, so the link is, it's just incredibly clear. Study after study shows the same thing. Autistic folks are more likely to identify as trans, and trans folks are more likely to be autistic. We're not talking about a small overlap here. This is a big, growing community whose experiences we absolutely need to understand better.
To really get what it's like to live at this intersection, we've got to talk about this thing called camouflaging. It's a huge part of the autistic experience, and it's basically the constant, exhausting work of trying to fit into a world that just wasn't built for you. But what does camouflaging actually mean? You know, it's so much more than just being a little shy or trying to act normal. It's a full-on, conscious strategy for just surviving a world that plays by a totally different set of social rules.
Camouflaging basically breaks down into two key things. First, there's masking. That's when you're actively hiding autistic traits, like fighting the urge to fidget or stim. Then there's compensating. That's where you're faking neurotypical behaviors, like forcing yourself to make eye contact or memorizing entire scripts just to have a conversation. It is a relentless, nonstop performance.
And this quote from author Devin Sparrow, wow, it just perfectly captures the physical toll. Think about that. Just 30 minutes of chatting can leave someone completely drained. That exhaustion is your body literally screaming at your brain that this performance, it's not natural, and you can't keep it up forever. And the long-term cost? It goes so far beyond just being tired. Years and years of camouflaging are directly linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts. It can also make it almost impossible for someone to figure out who they really are deep down, or even to get a diagnosis that could open the door to support they desperately need. So, what happens when you're both autistic and trans? It's not just about wearing one mask. It's this incredibly complex layering of identities and performances. It's something philosophers and writers are really trying to wrap their heads around right now. And to understand these layers, we can actually reach way back, all the way to the 20th century philosopher Simone de Beauvoir. Now, she wasn't writing about being autistic or trans, but her ideas about the female experience, they give us the first crucial piece of this puzzle. De Beauvoir called this concept doubling. She argued that in a patriarchal society, women are constantly forced to see themselves through the eyes of others. So you're both the person looking, the surveyor, and the person being looked at, the surveyed. It's this first layer of constant self-monitoring.
Okay, so let's see how these layers stack up. If cis women experience doubling, some theorists are now saying that trans people experience tripling. And think about it, it makes sense. You're monitoring your current body, your past body, and an imagined future body that feels truly authentic. Okay, now add autism to that mix. On top of all of that, you've got the constant performance, the negotiation between your true autistic self and the neurotypical mask you have to wear. This creates what some are calling quadrupling or even quintupling. It's just this state of intense, multi-layered self-surveillance.
And if that all sounds a little abstract, just listen to how the writer-porter makes it feel so personal and so real. They describe it as being like a pile of ill-fitting costumes, put on one after the other without ever taking off the ones underneath. What a powerful way to describe that suffocating weight.
And at the end of the day, here's the ultimate cost, put so powerfully by M. Hayworth. Living a masked existence has robbed me of me. It's a profound total loss of self, and this intense internal battle has devastating, measurable consequences. So let's look at the data.
All right, we've talked about the internal experience, the feeling of it. Now let's look at the cold, hard data, because this constant pressure of camouflaging has very real and very serious consequences for people's health.
There's one landmark study in particular that gives us a really stark look at these health disparities, and it puts real numbers to the struggles this community is facing every single day.
That research is called the STRONG Study, and it is a massive project. They analyzed the health records of over 6,400 transgender people, which created one of the biggest and most important data sets we have on this community's health.
And the findings are, honestly, they're staggering. Let's start with depression. 52% of the transgender people in the study had a diagnosis. That is more than double the rate for cisgender women and nearly 4 times the rate for cisgender men. These aren't just numbers on a chart, that represents an immense amount of pain.
And for anxiety, it's pretty much the exact same story. 42% of the transgender cohort had a diagnosis. Again, about twice the rate of cis women and 3 times the rate of cis men. The pattern is undeniable. This is a clear and alarming health crisis.
But this is probably the most alarming data of all. When you look at self-harm and suicidal thoughts, specifically in the transmasculine community, the rate of self-inflicted injury is 7 times higher than their cisgender peers, and the rate of suicidal ideation is nearly 10 times higher. This is the devastating real-world price of living behind all those masks.
This data just hammers home exactly why this research is so critical, and also why it's so incredibly difficult to do. I mean, just look at this flowchart from the STRONG study. It shows you how tough this work is. The researchers had to sift through more than 12,000 different records just to find a reliable group of about 6,500 people to study. It's a huge reason why these health disparities have been hidden in the shadows for way too long.
So, where does all this leave us? We've seen the huge psychological toll of camouflaging, and we've seen the devastating health stats that follow. The real question here isn't just about understanding this experience, it's about changing it. How do we start to build a world where fewer masks are needed in the first place?